The rain fell hard that night, soaking the pavement and her thin sweater as if the sky itself was crying with her. Amina stood frozen at the gate of the house she once called home, her suitcase lying open beside her, clothes scattered like her shattered dignity. Behind the iron gates, the lights glowed warmly, but none of that warmth was for her anymore. "Get out," Cameron had said, his voice cold, impatient. "I've had enough of your tears, your weakness, your useless memories." She had looked at him then, searching his face for the man she married, the man who once wiped her tears and promised forever. But all she saw was a stranger, someone embarrassed by her grief, angered by her poverty, and annoyed by the shadow of a dead father, who no longer brought money into their lives. Her father had been everything to her, a quiet man with tired eyes and gentle hands. He raised her alone after her mother died. He taught her kindness, resilience, and above all, dignity. When he passed away a year ago, something inside Amina broke, and Cameron, instead of holding her together, began pulling away, little by little, day by day. "You're a burden now," Cameron had spat. "Your father's gone, his money's gone, and I won't carry you anymore." She hadn't argued. She hadn't begged. She only clutched her stomach instinctively, though she hadn't yet found the courage to tell him she was pregnant. Maybe some truths come too late to matter. Now, standing alone in the rain, Amina felt smaller than she ever had. Her phone was dead. Her savings were gone, spent on hospital bills during her father's final days. Friends had drifted away. Relatives avoided her calls. She pulled her father's old wallet from her bag, worn at the edges, smelling faintly of sandalwood. Inside it was a single card, dark, heavy, almost out of place. He had once pressed it into her palm weeks before he died. "Keep this," he had whispered. "Only use it if life becomes unbearable." She never asked what it was. She never needed to. Until tonight. Her hands trembled as she closed the suitcase and dragged it through the rain. With nowhere else to go, only one place remained, the bank her father used for years. The building loomed ahead, tall and glowing, a palace of glass and steel. Amina wiped her tears, straightened her back, and whispered to herself, "Baba, I hope you were right." The bank was quiet, polished, intimidating. Marble floors reflected. Chandeliers that looked far too expensive for someone like her. Amina felt every stare as she stepped inside, her wet clothes, tired eyes, and shaking hands screaming that she did not belong. She approached the counter slowly. "May I help you?" The banker asked politely, though his eyes flicked briefly to her suitcase. Amina swallowed. I need to check something." Her fingers closed around the card in her pocket. When she finally placed it on the counter, the sound it made was heavier than expected. The banker's polite smile vanished. His eyes widened. He froze. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Where did you get this?" He stammered, standing up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Amina panicked. "I'm sorry. If it's not valid, I'll leave." "No," he interrupted sharply, his voice suddenly tight. Please sit down." Other staff members noticed. A senior manager hurried over, then another. Whispers spread like wildfire. The manager picked up the card carefully, as if it were made of glass. "This card," he said slowly, "belongs to one of our most extraordinary clients." Amina's heart pounded. It was my father's. The room went silent. The manager inhaled sharply. "Your father was Mr. Hassan Rahman." She nodded, confused. "Yes. He worked his whole life. He wasn't extraordinary." The banker let out a strangled laugh, half shock, half disbelief. Your father was the silent majority shareholder of this bank." Amina stared at him. "That's impossible." "He requested complete anonymity," the manager said gently. "No public records. No media. Even employees didn't know his identity." The banker's voice cracked as he added, "He once said he didn't want his daughter loved for his money, only protected by it if the world ever failed her." Amina's knees gave way. She sank into the chair as tears flooded her eyes, not of pain this time, but of realization. All those years of struggle, all those sacrifices, the second-hand clothes, the long nights, the humility. Her father had been rich beyond imagination. Yet he lived like the poorest man, so she would grow up rich in character. The manager leaned forward respectfully. Ms. Amina, according to our records, everything now belongs to you. And that was when the banker screamed, "Call the CEO. Right now." The private office was warmer, quieter. Tea sat untouched on the table as Amina tried to process the impossible truth unfolding before her. Screens lit up with numbers that didn't feel real. Accounts, properties, trusts, donations. In her father's name, schools, hospitals, orphanages. Why didn't he tell me? She whispered, her voice breaking. The CEO, a silver-haired man with kind eyes, smiled sadly. Because he wanted you strong, not spoiled. He believed hardship builds wings. Amina covered her face and cried like a child again, this time not from loss, but love. Her father had known. He knew life could be cruel. He knew people could leave. He knew she might one day stand alone. And he prepared for that day, quietly. A letter was placed in her hands. My beloved daughter, if you are reading this, then life became heavy. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. Remember, money is not power, kindness is. Use this gift not to rise above others, but to lift them. And never return to those who threw you away when you were broken. Amina clutched the letter to her chest. For the first time since her father's death, she felt safe. 3 days later, Cameron saw her face on the news. Unknown heir takes control of Rahman Holdings. The headline read. He dropped his phone. Her name echoed in his head like a curse. He rushed to the bank, demanded to see her, begged past security. When she finally entered the room, she was calm, radiant, dressed simply, but carrying a quiet authority that shook him. Amina, he breathed. I didn't know. If I had known. She raised her hand gently. That's the point. You didn't love me when I was nothing. Tears streamed down his face. Please, come home. She looked at him, not with anger, but clarity. I already did. She turned and walked away. And he knew, some doors never reopen. Months later, Amina stood outside a small maternity clinic bearing her father's name. Children laughed inside. Hope lived there. She rested a hand on her pregnant belly and smiled softly. Her child would never know hunger. But more importantly, they would know humility, kindness, and courage, just like their grandfather. As the sun set, Amina whispered, "Thank you, Baba. I survived." And somewhere beyond the sky, a quiet man smiled, knowing his greatest investment was never money. It was her.